I'll tell you what, 12 degrees never felt so good. As I was, oh, wow, my phone just ticked up to 13. How about that? We are hitting a heat wave around here, and it feels good. Happy Wednesday to Hump Day. Welcome in. I think the worst is over as far as I can tell, but we'll have to wait and see. It looks like some cold air may be back by the weekend. But today we are going to break the freezing mark. Not by much, but here in Overland Park, Corporate Woods, we are going to get to 33 degrees today. So a lot to celebrate as we get it rolling on a Wednesday morning on KCMO. Now, speaking of this weather, we've all been dealing with it for the better part of a week, right? It has just been unbelievable. Well, if you are a sucker and you made the mistake, and listen, we all fall for something once in a while, but if you made the mistake of buying an electric vehicle, specifically a Tesla, under the guise of saving the planet one charge at a time, you are quite possibly paying for it right now. The Kansas City Star had this report saying here, Tesla owners are lining up at Chicago area charging stations in sub-zero temperatures because their electric vehicle batteries are dying quickly. So there's a report here from Fox 32 in Chicago that was picked up by the Kansas City Star. And I guarantee you that, you know, the issue is, I'm sure, at a larger scale in Chicago, being a larger city. But here in Kansas City, I guarantee you, there are people with Teslas and other electric vehicles who are having a whale of a time trying to get these things charged in this weather. I was getting gas a couple of days ago, and it was -2 at the time, and I was having a tough time getting the pump to fill up. You know, it was kind of doing a thing where the gas pump was clicking on you every, I don't know, couple of seconds, so it took me a while to get $10 in gas. Well, during that time, there was a guy at the electric vehicle charging station, and let's just say he was there long before me, and while I don't know when exactly he left, I got to imagine he was there long after me. But don't worry, he's saving the planet, and I'm just guzzling gas and destroying it one fill up at a time. So here's the report from Fox 32 in Chicago, and then we'll get into this a little bit further, since this is one of those things that a lot of people are not told when they go and buy their Tesla or their other form of an electric vehicle. Here it is, Fox 32 in Chicago, and the report that's gone viral up there, but applies very much to Kansas City.
It's a disaster, seriously.
With temperatures falling into the negative double digits, these charging ports have stopped charging, leaving many Tesla owners stranded here in long lines since Sunday.
Nothing, no juice, it's still on 0%, and this is like 3 hours this morning being out here, after being out here 8 hours yesterday.
Has it been charging?
No, not at all.
It just isn't working.
At all. It's just frozen, and so I'm getting it towed to the Tesla service center because that's my only option at this point.
Adding to their frustration, they say, is that they're getting no help when they call Tesla for assistance.
No response from Tesla. We have been suffering since yesterday afternoon.
These are unusually cold temperatures, but do you find this acceptable?
No, not at all. Not really. I think it's less on the actual vehicle and more on the infrastructure.
So that's from Fox 32 in Chicago. How about that guy in the end? I don't think it's really on the vehicle. I think it's on the infrastructure. Hey, buddy, I hate to break it to you, but the infrastructure is kind of like the vehicle as well. So I know you don't want to blame Tesla. You wouldn't want to blame that stock that you've taken to the moon. You wouldn't want to blame the car company that fleeced you into a $50,000, $60,000 buy potentially and convinced you were saving the planet by buying one. I know you don't want to blame them as a company, but I hate to tell that guy that, brother, the infrastructure is the car. So you think about what's going on. I mean, you know, there's tens of millions of Americans right now who are dealing with this Arctic cold across the Midwest. It's moving east, and there are a growing number of electric vehicle owners. And a couple of things. I've never been in the market for an electric vehicle, but they have got to give you this information up front. I think it should be mandatory, whether it's states mandating it or whether it's the federal government mandating it, that they better tell you, hey, this thing is not going to charge. Or it may very well not charge if the weather gets below fill in the blank. Because now we're finding out, and I didn't even know this. Now, once again, I've never been in the market for one. So maybe if I was, I'd do a little more research. But one thing we've learned over the last couple of days about these EVs, and it was noted in the Kansas City Star article here, but it went into a little bit more depth elsewhere, is that these batteries lose up to 40% of their juice when the weather gets this cold. According to the Associated Press, they found that cold temperatures can temporarily reduce EV range by more than 40% when drivers use interior heaters. Well, guess what? When it's really cold, what do you want to use on your car? The interior heater. The AAA study found that in 20-degree weather, the average driving range fell by 12% when the car's heater was not in use and fell by 41% when it was being used. That's in 20-degree weather. We have not felt 20 degrees in this town in going on a week. Put that into perspective. It's 12 degrees this morning, and I never thought 12 degrees could feel warm. But when I walked out to the car to come into the station, I was like, yeah, this isn't half bad. 12's not too shabby, if you ask me. It's funny how your body adjusts. But that's the kind of information that either the federal government should be forcing these companies to tell you if you are about to buy an EV. And then on top of that, what's the other end game here for places like California? Well, California, as you all know, is set to basically will be banning the sale of new gas-powered cars. The goal is to do that by 2035. So here's what should be happening, because I know we think of California, we think of sunny beaches and things like that, but there's a lot of parts of California that get cold, that are in the mountains. You are literally forcing people to drive vehicles that there's no guarantee we'll be able to get them from point A to point B if it's cold, or will charge if it's cold. Now, the technology will improve. There's no doubt about it. But that's where competition is the name of the game. We should be encouraging competition between all these car companies, and then may the best man or woman win when it comes to creating an electric vehicle that actually works properly in sub-20-degree temperatures, not trying to remove the competition. I mean, think about it. When they first started making cars, no one banned horses. But now we're at the point where what do they want to do? At least some states, and I'm sure some federal government officials would love to do this as well. Well, we got to start banning these gas-powered vehicles because we got to move electric. No, create competition in the marketplace and let the consumer decide what is in their best interest. 913-4087-957 as we roll through the start of the show here on KCMO Talk Radio. I'm going to get to you, and I'm going to tie this into something happening here in Kansas as well. We've got an update on the Panasonic plant in DeSoto and what the timeline is on that and what that might look like, because they're going to be building those electric vehicle batteries at that Panasonic plant in DeSoto. So this story actually ties together nicely. We'll get to that coming up, and you at 913-408-7957. Kicking it off on a Wednesday morning on 95.7 FM KCMO. I just Googled this. Does Tesla let people know their cars don't work in cold weather? Well, surprisingly, the answer is Tesla does not. But here's the top answer. It comes from Tesla's support website. A blue snowflake icon may appear on your touchscreen and in the app if your battery is too cold for full power and ideal range. That's a nice way of saying we will alert you if your car is not working properly or if you can expect your car to not be working properly. The whole idea of the EV, which, of course, if some people had their way, they would force us to drive by yesterday. It's nice if it's like a little toy car for you and you also have gas-powered vehicles as an option, right? And it also helps if you live in like Florida or Southern California or Arizona. But I admittedly had no idea that these EVs, first off, lose 40% of their juice in sub-20 degree temperatures if you're using your indoor heaters. So I guess you could, save another 20% if you just sat there in, if I lent you my heated vest and you bundled up like you were going to the Chiefs game on Saturday, and then you drove in your car and you'd get a little more juice. Who the hell wants to live that way when you don't have to? And not only that, but you're paying a premium for these cars. That's the amazing part as well. Like it's not like the Tesla or the EV in general is a $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 car brand new. And you're saving money by buying one. Oftentimes it's the opposite. You are paying a premium for this thing, and now you have potentially millions of EV owners who are not able to charge their cars in this weather. The reports first came out of Chicago, but it's been getting picked up here locally by the Kansas City Star. And it's really got to pain the Kansas City Star to write about this. There's no way the Kansas City Star wants to be writing about how EVs aren't working in this weather. Because if they had their druthers, they'd also be cramming us into their EVs. They would love to be doing that. 913-408-7957. That's our text line as we get it rolling here on KCMO Talk Radio. Pete, I saw a Tesla on the road yesterday with tags that said gas nah, like N-A-H. Well, you know what? When they are on the side of the road because their EV stalled out on them and lost all its battery power, and that gas-powered AAA service truck comes to bail them out, I wonder how that person will be feeling about gasoline after that happens. Just a thought. I'm just throwing it out there and seeing how they feel after they get bailed out by the gas-powered AAA tow truck. Pete, I saw a Tesla owner that found a solution to their range. He had a generator strapped to the hitch carrier behind the car. There you go. That is very well done on the text line. Everyone's feeling a little frisky this morning. It's 12 degrees. We're feeling good around here. Good morning. Welcome in. Roads are looking better, as you heard there from Wendy. All right. Now, locally, Panasonic, of course, has the big plant that they are going to be building and opening up in DeSoto. And that plant is going to be building, electric vehicle batteries. In fact, Panasonic is the battery supplier for Tesla. So, of course, the company broke ground in July of 2022 on this project in DeSoto that is 4.7 million square feet. It's backed by up to $1 billion in state economic incentives, with the promise of employing 4,000 people in production of lithium-ion batteries used in vehicles, including Teslas. Well, yesterday, Panasonic executives involved in construction of the $4 billion plant said the facility would begin production in early 2025. And right now, they're still negotiating with Evergy on delivery of electricity to the manufacturing space. So, obviously, they've got to get power to the Panasonic plant for them to build batteries for Tesla. How are they going to do that? Well, that remains to be seen, but it looks like right now the cost of building electricity substations and miles of electricity transmission lines to accommodate Panasonic would be paid by consumers in Evergy's central region, Emporia, Topeka, and Wichita. Typical ratepayers in Johnson County, where the plant has been located, would not be a part of the rate obligation. That's as of right now. As I read it, it's still being negotiated, but the plan right now is for the electricity to the Panasonic plant in DeSoto, once it gets up and running early 2025, will be paid for by Evergy's consumers in Emporia, Topeka, and Wichita. Now, you can pass this on. Now we have this 95.7 FM, 100,000 watt stick. So we get down. We certainly get to Topeka, and I believe we get clear down to Emporia as well. So I know we've got listeners down there now. I know we have many of you who have friends and family in those places. But I wouldn't be happy about this. Here in Johnson County, there's not going to be a rate hike to feed the Panasonic plant, even though it's in Johnson County. But you will see a potential rate hike if you're an Evergy customer in Emporia, Topeka, and the Wichita area to then feed energy to the Panasonic plant. Because the state of Kansas, backed up the truck with $1 billion in incentives to fund this project, to build batteries for vehicles that do not make it and do not last well in sub-20-degree temperatures, with cobalt mined by Chinese slaves. And to think that, by the way, on a bipartisan basis, Republicans and Democrats in Kansas thought this was a great idea. They thought this was what Johnson County and DeSoto desperately needed, a Panasonic plant to build batteries for cars that don't last in weather we're dealing with right now. And now on top of that, if you're an Evergy customer in Emporia, Topeka, or Wichita, you are potentially going to be paying for the electricity to get to this Panasonic plant up here, and Johnson County residents are not going to be paying for it. So make sense of that. What a mess. We were doing fine when it was just drill, baby, drill, right? Oil, gas, we were doing okay. Has its grid held up here this winter? I think it has thus far, as far as we know. But what an absolute mess. Coming up on KCMO, a lot of you got hot and bothered by something someone said towards the end of this show yesterday. I will hit the reset button on that, and we'll get to you and have the conversation here on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM and 710 AM. Good morning. This got a lot of you hot and bothered yesterday, and that's fine. It's good by me. But I wanted to pick it back up this morning, 6:34 on a Wednesday. Happy hump day. Welcome in. Always great to have you as a part of the show. It's now 13 degrees outside, so these are exciting times.
2 claps and a Ric Flair.
Let's go, baby. Let's go. Kevin Yoder. Many of you who have been around town for a while remember his name. He was the longtime 3rd District Congressman in Kansas, represented Johnson County and parts of Wyandotte County for, nearly a decade. He lost to Sharice Davids back in 2018. And like many suburban districts, they flipped from red to blue during the Donald Trump years, and they haven't come back. Now, Donald Trump looks like he is on his way to the nomination. New Hampshire's coming up next week, but barring something unforeseen, Trump's going to be the guy. So Kevin Yoder's on the show yesterday, and I just asked him kind of a run-of-the-mill question. Hey, if Donald Trump wants to win some of these suburban districts back, like let's say a Johnson County, Kansas, which Kevin represented for many years, who should he pick as his VP? And I'll play Kevin's answer for you, but I put this quote up on our Facebook page, the KCMO Talk Radio Facebook page, also on the KCMO Talk Radio Instagram page. You can follow us in both places, and on Twitter, of course, as well. And a lot of you were not happy with what Kevin Yoder had to say when I asked him who should Trump consider for VP to try to win some of these suburban counties and districts.
So I do think it matters. Look, if you want to do well in places like Johnson County, Kansas, a Nikki Haley would probably do the best here. That will infuriate Trump voters, right? There's probably Trump voters listening right now that drive off the road if they added her to the ticket. But I think if he wants to think about expanding the base and winning, someone like Nikki Haley, a woman who's been an international leader, who has a bigger base to support, would be smart. My friend Tim Scott, the senator from South Carolina, is a national leader, an impressive leader. I think both those folks would do well to expand the base and really bring the party into places that it can't really compete right now.
All right, that was Kevin Yoder, former Kansas congressman, on this show late yesterday. So he put this up on our social media pages, and needless to say, and it's what I expected, many of you were not happy with that idea. Here are some of the comments on our Facebook page. Find that on KCMO Talk Radio. Kim writes here, nope, she's an establishment candidate who would be a disaster equal to Kamala Harris. Now, with all due respect, Kim, I love you, but Nikki Haley is in no way in the ballpark of Kamala Harris. Reason number one for that is because she knows how to speak and use her words to create these things called sentences and paragraphs and ideas and coherent thoughts. So you could not be a Nikki Haley fan, but to say that she's Kamala Harris light, that's a stretch. Rob says no to Haley. She puts down Trump when she talks. Pete, just yesterday, this is from Matt, Trump called Nikki Haley bird brain. Well, that is true, but here's the thing about Trump. He's very quick to be your friend after he insults you. Like this stuff, he doesn't take this stuff personally. It's just part of the game. It's part of the act for Trump. Think about it. He was destroying Vivek Ramaswamy over the weekend. Right? Remember that? What Trump was saying about Vivek over the weekend? He said, Vivek is not MAGA. Vivek is being deceitful. Well, yesterday, Vivek Ramaswamy shows up in New Hampshire with Donald Trump and does a rally with him, and Trump's giving him that look from behind the stage like, I own you now, buddy. That's the look that he was giving Vivek. It's all business with Trump. Just because he calls somebody a name doesn't mean that he would never pick them as a VP. Trump is very day-to-day and very transactional. It's part of the reason he's had success. Like, I don't think he takes any of this stuff or views any of this stuff as personal. He just views it as trying to win the game. And in this case, it's an election. But you had Vivek Ramaswamy yesterday on the stage, crowing about Trump 3 days after Trump said the guy's deceitful. So I don't think that changes the game from the standpoint of whether or not Trump would consider someone like a Nikki Haley.
A better choice left in this race than this man right here, and that is why I am asking you to do the right thing as New Hampshire and to vote for Donald J. Trump as your next president, because we're not working with a lot of time here.
That was Vivek Ramaswamy yesterday afternoon, 3 days after Trump crushed him. So to say that, well, Trump just called Nikki Haley bird brain so he would never pick her as a VP, I don't think so. If he thinks Nikki could help him win and help improve his numbers, not win suburban districts, but improve his numbers in suburban districts, I think he would do it. And his top advisor admitted as much over the weekend, Jason Miller. He said that Trump basically said Vivek's out. There's no way Vivek gets the nod. But they did not close the door on a Nikki Haley. So our Facebook page was going nuts yesterday with people, not liking what Kevin Yoder said. And you're entitled to that opinion. I mean, whatever you want to say, to text, to call in the show with is totally cool. But I'm just bringing it up from the standpoint of saying if Trump thinks that she will help him win in November, then I believe he's going to seriously consider it. Because I don't think the diehard MAGA base is necessarily going to turn on him, because in the end, the VP doesn't do a whole lot. You think the VP is going to tell Trump what to do? Wes is in Gladstone kicking it off. What's up, Wes? Good morning. You're on 95.7 FM.
Yeah, hey, Pete. So my problem with Nikki Haley is she's a swamp monster, man. And so the biggest mistake Trump made in his first term was he trusted people who were in the swamp. Look what Jeff Sessions did to him. And then, everybody else was working against him. If he picks her, he'll be trying to drain the swamp, but she'll be working to stab him in the back on that. And that's
let me pose the other side of this. I don't think you're giving Trump enough credit. What if Trump, he knows how the game is played now. You're right. There were a lot of people that backstabbed him. But if he thinks that Nikki Haley can help him win this election, and full well knowing that there might be things that she would try to do behind the scenes if they get to D.C. together that he may not agree with, but he's going to full well know who's on his side and who he needs to keep an eye out for. But effectively, he is using these people to win an election and nothing more. And I think you got to give the guy a little more credit where he would be able to do that.
Well, you've got a good point there, Pete. So if she can help him win, I wouldn't be for it, because I remember the biggest mistake Ronald Reagan made was naming Bush as his VP to bring the party together. And Bush gave us Clinton, who gave us the second Bush, who gave us Obama. So there are consequences for the VP pick. So,
well, I have not heard Ronald Reagan get blamed for Barack Obama. That is a new one. Wes.
That's the new domino theory.
All right, buddy. Have a great day.
You guys stay warm. Okay.
You too, pal. You too. Stay warm. 913-408-7957. This is on the text line, 3556. Pete, I live in Johnson County. Kevin Yoder is right. I don't want Nikki Haley, but she is a plausible solution to the suburban problem. And that's what this is ultimately about. I mean, listen, Trump is looking like he is well on his way to being the nominee. But if he wants to win the general, he's going to have to at least close the gap in places like Johnson County, Kansas, which he won back in 2016, and then he got crushed in 2020. How does he close the gap? Now, his approach and a different approach, not a different approach, but a softer approach from him would help. But also, a VP pick can do some of that. That's all a VP is really for, trying to help you gain votes in places that you can't. In 2016, it was Mike Pence to shore up the evangelical vote. You know, Obama picked Biden to shore up the moderate vote at the time when Joe was actually a moderate. McCain had Palin to shore up his conservative base. I mean, that's how it works. But Trump picking, MAGA light, Huckabee Sanders, Kristi Noem, Carrie Lake, that does nothing. Absolutely nothing. 913-408-7957. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. There are some new odds, by the way, that have been released for who will be the next president of the United States. You're not going to believe who's in third. It's not Nikki Haley. It's not Ron DeSantis. Obviously, Trump and Biden are two, but the third best odds to be president, somebody who's technically not even in the race. I'll tell you who that is. And then we have Dan Hawkins, Kansas Speaker of the House, at the top of the hour. They've rolled out a new tax-cutting plan that should excite Kansans. We'll get to all in the next 20 minutes here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. Controversial topic, but one that is worth addressing. I mean, there's not much else to talk about in this primary. Trump wins, of course, Iowa a couple of nights ago by 30 points. New Hampshire's a few days away. Nikki might keep it close, but I just don't see a path for anybody not named Donald Trump to be the nominee. So now you spin the conversation forward, and Kevin Yoder on this show yesterday, former Kansas congressman, knows, of course, Johnson County well, represented it, lost it, and now Sharice Davids has had a stranglehold on it for the better part of 6 years. What should Trump consider doing at VP to grow the base, to help him in the suburbs? And Kevin Yoder said, well, I'd look at Nikki Haley or Tim Scott. And this was on the KCMO Talk Radio Facebook and Instagram page yesterday. And obviously a lot of you hated everything about it. And the text line feels the same way this morning. For the most part, I don't want to speak for everybody. I mean, some of you are saying, as this texter says, I live in Johnson County. Kevin Yoder's right. I don't want her, but she's a plausible solution to the problem. Also on the text line, Pete, Nikki would be awesome. Some of these knuckleheads are too far right, and they're killing us. Okay? But then some of you are also obviously feeling the other way. Pete, I'm a big-time Trump supporter. I would take RFK over Nikki Haley as VP any day. So that's what's beautiful about the topic. The conversation and the opinions are all over the place in a good way. It's a healthy conversation to have because, trust me, it's the next conversation here. Let's go to John. He's out in Grain Valley. What's up, John? You're on KCMO 95.7. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. I got to kind of lean in a little bit on your side on this one. If Trump picks Haley, fine, great. Is that so distasteful to the hardcore base, they will not vote for Trump? And by that I mean They won't vote for Biden. They won't vote for Trump. They'll stay home, and that's how you get Joe Biden. Because I knew people in the last election were like, I can't vote for Biden. I will not vote for Trump. I'm staying home. Okay, great. Now you have Joe Biden. Who I'd like to see is Tulsi Gabbard. I think she could bridge gaps. It's just a name to put out there, but I think she would be good at it. But what bothers me is, and I've seen this in politics before, I didn't get my person, therefore I'm not voting. Well, thank you, you sanctimonious ass. Stock puppet. Whatever.
Well, John, I'm just going to say that there are people who have insisted on the text line and on Facebook that they will – oh, we lost them – that they will not vote if Trump puts Haley on the ticket. And I think that's an emotional knee-jerk reaction. I don't believe that. If you are a diehard MAGA, this could be the last time in your life, I mean, unless Trump were to lose and then run again in 28, but this is the last time your guy, your man is going to be on the ballot. And one thing we know about Trump voters is he's not nearly as good at getting his people out to vote for other people. Like we saw that in 2022, right? A lot of his big name endorsements failed. Partially they failed because they were just bad candidates like Dr. Oz and Herschel Walker. But one thing that we know is that Trump voters will walk over hot coals to vote for their guy. And I don't believe that despite maybe some of the talk right now from some of you on the text line and elsewhere, that you would not vote for Trump if he were to pick someone like Nikki Haley. I just don't buy that. I'm not challenging it. I don't believe it. So then Trump solidifies his base because, well, he's the guy. He's at the top of the ticket. And then you plausibly get somebody who helps you in certain suburban districts, not wins you those districts, but helps you enough to get you over the hump in some key states like Georgia, like Pennsylvania, like Arizona. That would be the game plan. And the Trump team is not shutting the door on a Nikki Haley VP. They have on Vivek, according to Jason Miller. They have not done it on Nikki. And that's, to me, what is going to be the next very interesting conversation over the next couple of weeks, because I don't think there's any juice in this primary after next week. I mean, even if Nikki Haley barely wins New Hampshire, I don't see how she wins South Carolina, even though it is her former state. It would take like Ron DeSantis dropping out, and then if Ron drops out, I think a lot of his voters go back to Trump anyway. I don't think they go to her. Now, look at this, all right? These are the odds to be the next president of the United States. Donald Trump is the favorite to be the next president of the United States, according to some of these offshore betting sites. U.S. betting companies can't do this, but offshore accounts and offshore sites can. Donald Trump is the favorite right now at plus 130. That means $1 wins you $1.30 for Trump. Joe Biden is plus 210. That means you bet $1 on Joe. If he wins, you get $2.10 back, which in Biden's economy is really like $1.72. The third best odds to be the president of the United States, it's not Nikki Haley, it's not Ron DeSantis, it's not Gavin Newsom, Michelle Obama. Michelle Obama comes in at number 3 on this list to be the next president of the United States.
She's a real beauty.
And you know that there are people in the Democratic Party that would love to see Michelle take over. There are people that I believe are angling to make that happen, whether Joe wants it to or not. But Michelle has better odds than Nikki Haley, Gavin Newsom, and Robert Kennedy Jr. to be the next president of the United States at 17-1. Now, it's a big gap between Biden, Trump, and Michelle, but what does that tell you? That she is now number 3, betting odds to be the next president. There's at least a movement somewhere to make that happen. And it doesn't surprise me one bit, because even Barack, he's been warning Biden, apparently, according to reports, about Trump's strength for months now. And with Joe's numbers down at 33% approval, I mean, they have got to be shaking in their boots. at the idea of sending this old man back into the fire in 2024. So just keep an eye on that, because usually the betting trends are a sign of what potentially could be coming. Dan Hawkins, Speaker of the House in Kansas, they rolled out a tax-cutting plan yesterday for all of Kansas. He'll tell us the details next. Bill O'Reilly is coming up at 8:05. Don't miss it on KCMO. Look ahead to everything that's to come in the weeks ahead in 2024. It's going to move fast. So this tragedy from, almost 2 months ago now, we have some more details on what may have happened here. Grayson O'Connor is the 5-year-old kid whose face was plastered all over local news back in late November after the police responded to Grayson, who fell to his death out of the 17th floor window at the Grand Boulevard Lofts. 10th and Grand is where the apartment complex is located. And we have some information on what is alleged to have happened. An eviction petition filed against Grayson O'Connor's mother alleges that she removed the window stops from the window that authorities believe Grayson fell from. Police believe he fell out of that window that they found ajar on the 17th floor of the Grand Boulevard Lofts, where he was living with his mother. According to the eviction filing, on or about November 27, 2023, it was discovered that a minor occupant had fallen from a window after the window stops had been carelessly removed by the defendant. The filing also alleges the unit where Grayson was living was uninhabitable by the state due to very poor sanitary conditions. Grand Boulevard Lofts Limited Partnership owns the building, filed the eviction petition against Grayson's mother. Local news is not naming her because it's not clear if she's been charged. The Jackson County Prosecutor's Office was reached out to yesterday by Woke 41 and others for an update, but a spokesperson said there is no update at this time. Yeah, they're too busy letting criminals run wild and, trying to charge cops. But an investigation is ongoing to determine Grayson's cause of death. We'll let the facts obviously bear out, but two thoughts here. If any of this turns out to be true, this is somebody who deserves to spend the rest of their life in prison. And on top of that, I've said this for many years on this show, since all the stupidity of 2020. The greatest privilege you can have in your life is not the color of your skin. It's not your gender. It's not the things that they tell us today give you privilege. We get told all the time that privilege is based on gender, skin color, and all this other nonsense. Religion. Somehow there's like Christian privilege or I don't even know. But that's what, folks claim. It's all nonsense. It's all BS. The greatest privilege you can have is quality parental privilege. I have a 5-year-old. I have a 2.5-year-old. And they obviously need boundaries. They need structure. But the one thing in life that matters more than anything else that you can't pick, that will give you the biggest leg up to success, is who's raising you. Who are your parents? And not just about how much money they have. It's not about, a wealth thing necessarily. Now it can help, but it's just about, do they care? How do they raise you? How do they treat you? You have this 5-year-old kid, and the stories at the time, right after his tragic death, was that this kid would be roaming around the apartment complex, and people around the apartment complex knew Grayson. And they talked about what they perceived to be a very troubled situation in his home life. I mean, all those things were noted. And to think that now, according to the apartment complex, the allegations are The mother removed the window stops from a 17th floor apartment with a kid who apparently, was struggling in many ways. That is just the most absurd thing that you could ever imagine. So we'll see how it plays out. But it ties back to something that a lot of people are never going to actually say because they don't want to say it, because they want to break us down based on our race, our religion, our gender. The greatest privilege that you can have today is parents who care. It's parental privilege. It's not white privilege. It's not male privilege. It's not straight privilege. It's not, fill in the blank religion privilege, Jewish privilege, Christian privilege. No, it's having decent parents who care about raising their children. And this appears to be a case in point because you can't pick them. And if you get ones who don't care, tragedies like this can happen. Bill O'Reilly right around the corner on 95.7 FM. Plus, stream us on the iHeart app, on your Alexa, on your Google Home. Bill O'Reilly. Don't miss it. Next. 8:22 on a Wednesday, a balmy Wednesday morning. It feels good when you walk outside and it's 14 degrees, 20 degrees above where it's been the last week or so at this time. So I don't have to bust out the heated vest in the studio. I mean, we have beautiful studios here, but when you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 windows, you can't do anything when it's minus 4 degrees outside. So you're going to feel it, by the way. Never in my life would I think 14 degrees would feel okay. It did this morning. So I was walking into the studios. All right, fellas, I'm here not just to give you the best takes in Kansas City, but also to warn you about what's to come, what's on the horizon. Because anytime something starts with the kids, with Gen Z, it eventually makes its way up to millennials in my case, to Gen Xers, and I don't know if this will work its way up to the boomers, but just know that this is starting to get some traction here. And I'm warning you about it first. There's this new test that is being put forth by women to their men. And it is called the orange peeling theory. You know about this one, John or Garner? You guys aware of this?
I kind of saw something a week ago.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Ahead of the curve. I like that. Garner, he seems totally clueless on this one. Is that fair, Garner? All right, he's shaking his head. He's not in the mix on this. Anyway, here's what it is. The orange peeling theory goes as follows. You ask your man to peel an orange for you. And if you don't do it, the theory goes that, well, is this person really for you? Are they willing to help you with the small, menial tasks that obviously they can do on their own, but will you just basically shut up and do what you're being told to do? That's what the orange peeling theory is. And before we go any further, is this something, John, would you just go ahead and would you peel the orange or would you not?
My problem is I'd peel it.
You would peel it.
But I would eat it.
But you...
I mean, where do you find a good orange redder, number one? So, yeah. Unfortunately, I might eat it.
Okay.
Here, you want some, honey?
That's exactly, I don't think you're alone in that, by the way. I think there's a lot of folks who would be of that same mindset where they would go ahead and they would peel the orange as well and then say, at least I'm taking a couple of pieces, right?
Where you get a little something for the effort.
A little something for the effort. So this is basically a test that women are doing to men to see what their loyalty is and see if they're willing to do menial tasks. Now, here's the thing. The notion here is obviously that, well, anyone can peel their own orange. So if you start asking questions like, why do you want me to peel your orange? Well, why can't you peel your own orange? That's supposed to be a red flag. Now, here's my question, though, right? In an age of people are people, persons are persons, men can be whatever they want, women can be whatever they want. I mean, the whole idea of men and women and having different interests and different wants and different needs, that's kind of gone out the window theoretically in 2024. Heck, some people will tell you that men can have babies. Men can chest feed. I mean, all these different things are now ideas that are out there. And I'm just trying to figure out which one is it. Do we want a culture where if a husband gets asked to, hey, peel an orange, he just mindlessly does it? Or is it like, no, we're all equal. There's no gender roles anymore. So go peel your own damn orange. You can't have it both ways. And that's where I struggle with this. What do you want? Do you want the chivalry, the yes, I'll peel your orange, honey, whatever you want? Do you want that back? Or do you want to live in this world where, I know now this is a big thing for those who are in the dating world. Like, who's picking up the tab? Who's paying the bill? Do we split the bill? All these weird things now because the gender roles are in this bizarre place. Heck, half the time now guys have to ask, so how long have you been a woman when you go out on a first date? That's now a thing that's got to be asked. So, like, I'm just glad I'm not in the dating world, number one. And number two, if I get asked to peel an orange, listen, I'll be a good guy. I'll peel an orange. But to your point, John, earlier, it's going to cost you at least a piece or two of the orange.
Well, you mentioned it's a good thing you're not in the dating world. What's the price of oranges now? You got to carry around a couple dozen with you if you're going to try this out, right? Yeah. It's the opposite of the Bronx Tale thing. Do you remember the movie, the keeper line where you unlock the car door for the woman and she gets in and you close the door. Now, if she slides over and unlocks the door for you, she's a keeper. And if she doesn't, same theory.
Oh, so this can work both ways.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's two different tests, I guess.
Well, how about this? If I'm watching the K-State Baylor game last night and I ask Kate to peel an orange, is that a test? Am I allowed to do that test, or is this only a one-way street? I'm just curious how that works.
Two-way.
I think it should be as well. Frank White, Jackson County executive. He is going to let this thing go down to the wire on the Royals and the Chiefs. We've got the details coming up. A lot of people on the text line saying, okay, I'll peel the orange. Where's my sandwich? Where's my beer? It's a two-way street, right? That's all it takes. I also got this. This seems very nice from a texter. This was actually a personal text. Pete, my wife and I each have an orange for breakfast. We peel our own, except if one gets up before the other. The early bird peels both. The late riser says thanks, and we're off and running with the day. That's how you stay married for a long time. Pretty simple concept. It's not always a test. Everything can't be a test. Can't always be a challenge. Just peel a damn orange once in a while. All right? Not a big deal. Move on with the day. Oh, gosh.
What do you got against lemons and limes? Right?
Yeah.
That's the old Facebook thing.
I will say this, and I say this as an older millennial. My brother's a younger millennial. He's single. Kate and I have been together since pre-dating apps, in college, at Villanova, the whole thing. So this whole new world order of dating is, I have more in common with boomers in the dating world than I do a lot of fellow millennials, just because of how we met and when we met. But the dating world sounds miserable right now. The one thing my brother notes is that so much of it is about what can you do for me? Not about how can we build a partnership and a marriage and a family that, works for all of us, that betters both of us. It's basically, what can you do for me? What are you doing for me? How are you making my life better? And yes, there's an element to that we all deal with, obviously, in marriages. But when the broader goal is not about us or we, and instead is about me, and that's all that, as he notes, it seems like women are seeking in today's dating world, that has got to be a tough nut to crack. That is just very difficult. And it's got to be pretty depressing as well. Because, what can you do for me? Also, by the way, buy me dinner. Because if you don't, you're not being chivalrous. But I also need my space because, hashtag girl power. It's like this nonstop mind game that's just on steroids. So I don't envy anybody right now that is dealing with that, John Anthony.
Apparently, you got to bring a resume and an orange.
Yeah.
Right? It's already costing you. You're not even there.
And don't forget your pronouns as well.
Oh, man.
You got to bring those too. Okay. All right. A guy who doesn't need his pronouns card, we've all known him in this town for 50 years, is Frank White. But what we don't know is where exactly Frank White is when it comes to the Royals, this sales tax extension that is going to be on the ballot. or is scheduled to be on the ballot come April. We don't know what exactly is going to happen. Frank White has not yet said whether or not he plans to veto this or whether or not he allows or plans to let it go through. So let's get a report here. This is from Jonathan Ketz, Fox 4. He has been leading the way on this conversation. And here's some of his reporting yesterday as we kind of wait and see what happens with the county executive and whether or not he is going to veto the ballot initiative to extend the 3/8 sales tax for the Royals and the Chiefs, for the Royals to build a new stadium and for the Chiefs to upgrade Arrowhead Stadium.
Lauren, there's a lot on the table, to be honest. Jackson County legislator Manny Abarca had actually proposed an ordinance for today that would just devote sales tax money to the Chiefs. Half of the 0.3% sales tax that would not go to the Royals at all. This was supposed to be discussed at a meeting that was set for 3 p.m. today here at the courthouse, but the meeting was canceled due to the weather.
And they've been most forthcoming about their location, their plans for reinvestment, their improvements to Arrowhead. I think there's more to tell with that story.
Abarca's ordinance would not be needed as long as the ordinance lawmakers passed last week either gets support from Executive Frank White or the legislature overrides a potential veto from him. But you guys have the votes right now to override him. However, okay, explain.
Maybe. I mean, I think it takes 6 of us still, right? I mean, so that 8-1 vote is not necessarily something that will transpire over to that. That depends on each individual legislator.
No comment yet from White, the Royals, or the Chiefs.
I've told this guy since day one, I've always wanted a downtown stadium.
At the Rally House down the street on the plaza, manager Aaron Lewis says he and coworker Lucas Spear talk about this issue often.
If you want to put Kansas City on the map, like everyone talks about, hey, come see Kansas City, come do this. A downtown stadium is crucial, I think.
Spear says Kansas Cityans need to think about what's best for both franchises.
At the end of the day, they're going to have to move at some point. I mean, why not now? Start something new, start something fresh, and make new memories there.
All right, I'm sure those two guys that work at Rally House are nice guys, but they're not Mensa members. The first guy says, yeah, KC wants to be on the map, you got to have a downtown stadium. Huh? Pretty sure Kansas City's on the map now, courtesy of a football team that, yes, has a great stadium, but also does this thing called winning. Doing my best Charlie Sheen. Winning!
Been on the map here for the last couple of years here. Been a good run.
Been a nice little run here. Yeah. You know, NFL drafts, new airports, 5 straight AFC championships.
World Series 2015.
World Series, World Cup coming. I don't know if that guy's stuck in 2004 or if he realizes it's 2024. But the notion that Kansas City needs a bad baseball team and a downtown ballpark to be put on the map, I don't know. We only have the most popular NFL player on the planet right now. I'm pretty sure crappy baseball in the downtown stadium is not going to be the thing that, well, got to get over the top. Nothing's going to do it like a 72-win team playing in a fancy ballpark downtown. What? Where do you come up with this
Got
stuff?
the number one wag, too.
Yeah,
Wife
yes.
and girlfriend, right?
I mean, yeah. Taylor's done more than any dopey, government initiative could do.
You cannot buy that kind of publicity.
Not even close. So God bless those two Rally House workers, and, I hope they keep furthering themselves and working hard, but that made no sense there at the end in the Fox 4 report. The more important thing with Frank White, though, is that he has until Thursday to support or veto this ordinance to put a stadium sales tax on the April ballot. And then if he does veto it, then you would have to have a vote of 6-3 on the Jackson County legislature to override the veto to get it onto the ballot in April for you, the Jackson County resident, to vote on extending the sales tax. Now, you might think to yourself, well, the original ballot measure passed 8-1. That doesn't mean that everyone's going to vote to override the veto. Example, Sean Smith, Jackson County legislator who's also running for Congress against Emmanuel Cleaver. He was a yes vote on the 8-1 to get it on the ballot. But would he vote yes to override the veto? I don't know. That remains to be seen. We can talk to him about it if that time comes and after Frank White vetoes this thing. So while we've talked about it like it's a done deal, it's not really a done deal. There still is a lot that has to happen before we actually get this thing to the ballot in April. And the key on April is this. The Chiefs want this done in April because they believe the governor of Missouri, Mike Parson, who's in his last year in office, will set aside some state monies for the Chiefs to make the upgrades they want to Arrowhead. They're not convinced that a future governor will go about giving them the monies they want to make the Arrowhead upgrades. We know that Mike Parson is a huge Chiefs fan. He wants to set aside some monies, yes, your money, but state monies for the Chiefs. And if I don't want to say the wrong guy gets in the office, if someone who may not be as sympathetic to that gets into office in the governor's mansion next year, then the Chiefs may not get that money. That's why they want this on the ballot in April, and same thing with the Royals. Because they want to get their hands on some state money as well. So this is, like everything else in life, boil it down to sex and money, and in this case, it ain't about sex. Coming up, What If Wednesday? 3 questions as we approach the 9 o'clock hour on a Wednesday morning. We'll get to those. Coming up on 95.7 FM, KCMO, and, of course, stream us at kcmotalkradio.com.